I want to pick up a few comments. The Imperialist says, Grifter Farage, the so-called man of the people, ladies and gentlemen. And Scalyback says, why get bent out of shape about somebody's earnings? So very politics of envy and Marxist leaning. An hour of anybody's life can be sold to whomsoever is foolish enough to pay them whatever they are foolish enough to pay them for. Of the millions in the UK, there will be few who would say no to £16,000 a month to go on what can loosely be called a news channel and spout bollocks and bullshit a few times a week. Struggling to truly understand your point, by the way, I would not give Farage the equivalent of dole money, as I cannot stand the man, but clearly there are those who do not agree with me. I think it's an interesting point of view, and I entirely agree. My concern is that Farage and Lee Anderson and Tice have two masters, the servant of two masters, as indeed the wonderful farce suggests. You can't be divided, and if you have been elected by the public to do a job, then that is the primary focus in your life. But that is not borne out by the amount of money that Farage is taking in. He's being paid more to be a GB News presenter than he is being paid to sit in Parliament. So therefore, he must be measured against the quality of his performance as a Member of Parliament. And that means, is he holding enough surgeries? Is he writing enough letters? Is he responding to the concerns of his constituents? If he is not, then he's failing in his duty. And so far, he has demonstrated an adroit inability to ask questions in Parliament, instead turning to social media to ask those questions, and doing so in a provocative and dangerous way, to the extent that people have suggested. He was winding people up and therefore effectively encouraging rather than discouraging the riots. Ray Boyish says, not quite sure the relevance of this post. What is the relevance of the income of any MP, and where it's obtained, as long as it's not illegal? Well, that's why we have a register of members' interests. GB News obviously have their reasons for their pay scale, as it's a private enterprise. I think far more relevant when I hear BBC pay Jeremy Vine £700,000 or Zoe Ball £1.5 million or Gary Lineker his millions. As that is license fee, we pay it with no choice. I'd be more keen if you discussed the abolition of the TV licence and the BBC switching to subscription. Then the BBC would have to stand on its own feet. I'm actually very much in favour of the BBC keeping the licence fee. I think there's a case to be made for a national television service. What I'm not so sure of is whether the BBC is actually doing that at the moment. As for the payment of huge figures to people who are presenting programmes, I'm very cautious about the BBC being personalised by individuals, because it can lead to dangers. I think there's no danger with Zoe Ball, and I've been on her programme anyway, and I think she's a wonderful lady. But then I am biased. Jeremy Vine, we've spoken, and I think he's he is unreasonably vilified, and I'm not quite sure why. But maybe this is the politics of envy. I have no problem with Nigel Farage being paid huge amounts of money outside Parliament. My problem is whether or not he's actually doing the real job. And if he's not, then he needs to be held to account. And so far, we've seen a lot of Farage on social media. We haven't seen a lot of him in Parliament, and indeed he was conspicuously absent when the riots broke out. And yet, using social media to sit rather like the. Do you remember that time? You probably don't. When oh gosh, what is the name of the TV man? Anyway, a man, a TV imitator, one of these people, one of the first, Mike Yarwood. It was Mike Yarwood. Mike Yarwood pretending to be Mrs. Thatcher, with his handbag on the desk, and he didn't do the job terribly well. But I was reminded of Mike Yarwood in drag when I saw Nigel Farage pontificating between two flags, or I think he didn't have the flags up first time he did it, and but he did look. You did wonder where his handbag was.